Taken from the Ultimate Killer Collection, by Stuart Dandel. Manuel Blanco Romasanta. The Werewolf of Allariz. Manuel Blanco Romasanta was born on the 18th of November, 1809, and had a rather unusual start in life. He was originally named Manuela, due to having androgynous gender and his family believing him to be female. He was therefore raised as a girl until a doctor discovered his true sex at the age of 6. Not much else is known about his family or early life, but it is assumed he came from a reasonably wealthy background due to the fact that he could read and write, a rare occurrence at the time. When he reached maturity, Romasanta stood around 4 feet 8 inches and acquired work as a tailor. Upon the death of his wife in 1833, he decided to leave his job behind and become a traveling salesman, roaming throughout Galicia and Portugal. During this time, he would also hire himself out as a guide, helping weary travelers through the mountains to Castile, Asturias, and Cantabria, using the journeys as opportunities to trade goods between cities. Life became a whole lot harder in 1844, however, as Romasanta was struck with a murder charge. Supposedly, Vicente Fernandez, a constable from Leon, had come looking for Romasanta due to a 600 reals debt he had owed to a supplier. Fernandez was then found dead. When Romasanta didn't appear before the court, he was assumed guilty and given a prison sentence of 10 years in his absence. This would ultimately send him on the run. Romasanta wasted no time in his escape and he soon had a false passport in the name of Portuguese national, Antonio Gomes. Using this, he settled in the small village of Urchel and helped bring in the local harvest. It was also noted that he became very familiar with the women of the town, ingratiating himself by working as a cook or a weaver, 2 jobs solely operated by women at the time. Because of this, he was seen as effeminate by the men of the town, though there doesn't appear to have been any consequences. It would appear that Romasanta was still somewhat working as a guide during this time, as complaints began to arise of women and children disappearing on his journeys. At first there was no inkling of any issues, as Romasanta often provided the families with letters from their loved ones stating that they were settled and happy. Suspicions arose, however, when he was seen selling the clothes of people who had traveled with him. He was also suspected of selling soap made from human fat. In 1852, in the city of Escalona, a formal complaint was petitioned against Romasanta. It alleged that he deceptively convinced women and children to travel with him, so that he could murder them and remove their fat for soap production. A very serious and particular allegation. Romasanta was eventually arrested in Nambola over the allegation, during September of 1852. Instead of denying the accusations, he proffered a novel defense instead, lycanthropy, turning into a werewolf. The next month, a group of doctors from Allariz carried out an examination of Romasanta based on the now debunked science of phrenology. They asserted that his supposed affliction was a lie and that he had in fact, invented it. They did however note, that lycanthropy can be determined from cranioscopy, 2 things that would in modern times be called, falsehoods. The report did throw out a few interesting notes on Romasanta, however. They stated that his inclination to vice is voluntary and not forced. The subject is not insane, dim-witted or monomaniacal. He turns out to be a pervert, an accomplished criminal capable of anything, cool and collected and without goodness. This was a very damning indictment that can be assumed to have had considerable impact. It also, from a modern perspective, appears to infer a dissocial personality. When Romasanta was brought to trial, Galicia was in the middle of one of the worst famines of several that had plagued the area throughout the 19th century. The famine led to mass migrations and a noticeable increase in insanity. The prosecution of Romasanta in itself has made history, with the defense being based on a claim of lycanthropy, having never been repeated in the history of Spanish law. Manuel Blanco Romasanta admitted before the court that he had carried out 13 murders, explaining that he had been cursed and had committed them after transforming into a wolf. Below is a transcript of what he said. The first time I transformed, was in the mountains of Quito. I came across two ferocious-looking wolves. I suddenly fell to the floor, and began to feel convulsions. I rolled over 3 times, and a few seconds later I myself was a wolf. I was out marauding with the other two for 5 days, until I returned to my own body, the one you see before you today, Your Honor. The other 2 wolves came with me, who I thought were also wolves, changed into human form. They were from Valencia. One was called Antonio and the other Don Gennaro. They too were cursed. We attacked and ate a number of people because we were hungry. For the benefit of the court, the prosecutor asked Romasanta to provide a demonstration of his lycanthropic state. Unfortunately he could not. Romasanta then explained that this was due to the curse lasting 13 years, of which, the time had passed just the previous week. He was now cured. An amazing coincidence. With all the evidence before them, the court found Romasanta guilty of 9 murders, the other 4 were deemed to have resulted from genuine wolf attacks. On April 6, 1853, Manuel Blanco Romasanta was sentenced to death by garrote. He was also ordered to pay 1,000 reals compensation to each victim's family. When the case was sent for ratification to the territorial court in Coruna, the sentence was reduced to life imprisonment. This was then appealed in March of 1854, and the original verdict was upheld from the court in Allariz, death by garrote. In yet another twist, a Mr. Phillips from London wrote to the Spanish Minister of Justice, claiming that he could cure Romasanta with hypnotism and asked if his sentence could be commuted, so that Mr. Phillips could study the condition. The Minister of Justice wrote to Queen Isabella II, who personally commuted the death sentence to life imprisonment by royal order, on the 13th of May 1854. Romasanta was then transferred to a prison in Salinova. As with all things Romasanta, there is yet another twist to the tale, with nobody being able to state with any accuracy, when or where he died. Some state that it was not long after reaching Salinova, either through illness or being shot by a guard who wanted to see him change. Others say that he died in Ceuta prison of stomach cancer, on the 14th of December, 1863. Either way, it would be fair to say, that Manuel Blanco Romasanta is no longer of this earth.